What do you do if you want to stand out in the small hatchback market? Well, you wouldn't buy a Ford Fiesta, that's for sure. Thankfully, Suzuki, a well-known Japanese manufacturer, has the answer with their all-new Swift. The model I'm driving here is the SW5, top of the line, and with that you get stop start, cruise control, adaptive cruise control I should add, collision warning system, and a great infotainment system as well. You also get a 1 litre hybrid engine which puts out around 110 brake horsepower and gives you 0 to 60 in 10 seconds with a combined MPG of 62. That's not too shabby. In terms of the car's handling, the suspension is quite stiff in a way. You do get a little bit of body roll, but not a huge amount, which is good for corners, and it still feels comfortable going over the odd pothole. But depending on how deep that is, or if you're going on a cobbled path, then you're going to get thrown about quite a lot. But what it does give you is good steering accuracy, and it's actually got quite a decent turning circle as well. 3-point turns on a narrow street, not a problem at all. It's comfortable, but the suspension could be a little bit softer, and that would probably help the issue with the uncomfortable seats. Driving this on the motorway, you're going to want to stop after a couple of hours, otherwise you're going to end up with a slightly sore back at the end of your journey. Now this is the SZ5, the top of the range model, and what that gets you for your £15,000 is halogen headlamps, daytime running lights, 16-inch alloy wheels, and actually a really nice looking car, apart from down here this weird solid blanking plate on the grille. I'm not really a fan of that. But overall, for a Suzuki Swift, it looks quite smart. It definitely stands out in the car park. Under the bonnet, you have got a fairly capable 1 litre hybrid engine. Now, rather than using a turbo, Suzuki have fitted an electric motor which recharges whenever you're coasting in gear or braking. The regenerative energy going into a battery storage which is then deployed when you accelerate, giving you that bit of extra boost that you might need when you're pulling away. So inside, you won't be needing that, thanks to the start-stop push button. You've got an infotainment system with a glass screen on the front. That does restrict it somewhat because it reflects and you don't get that nice touch feel. The infotainment system gives you DAB and FM stereo, as well as playback through any media device connected through the USB or auxiliary slot. You also get hands-free calling, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and sat-nav. The whole thing is touchscreen enabled and allows you to drive fairly freely. However, the glass screen doesn't give you the haptic feel that you might get from some more premium vehicles. Also, the reflective screen attracts dust, and that is something that just niggles with me. You've got a bit of plasticky interior, but you've got some nice coloured finishes matching the body style of your car, and you've also got a steering wheel which has got every single control you could hope for on it, from your cruise control settings, your infotainment system, and even hands-free calling, as well as your adaptive cruise control distance and a speed limiter. It's not a bad place to be in here. The seats are a little bit uncomfortable for a long journey, but overall it's quite pleasant. Round the back, LED rear lights to give you a bit of extra visibility in those dark and misty nights, and on this model a reversing camera, although you don't get the parking sensor that you expect to find with it. Overall the back end looks a bit more like it's got a bit of a Volkswagen feel to it, and I quite like it. You've also got a fairly decent sized boot. Plenty of space in there for a weekend away's worth of luggage. I'll admit, I've owned a Suzuki Swift, a 2001 model, one of the earlier generations. Although it felt like it had been built in 1994, the interior was awful, the 1 litre engine was underpowered even for a 1 litre, and if a lorry came up behind me on the motorway I felt so unsafe, like I was driving something made of tinfoil. Thankfully, Suzuki have come on a very long way in the previous 16 years, and this car is miles away from what the Swift used to be. At £15,000, it's not cheap. Prices really start from 11,500, but this model feels like a £15,000 car, except for the seats and the infotainment system. Other than that, it's a pretty decent car for the money, and it's very different to a Ford Fiesta. It certainly stands out. I'll certainly consider it. The 1 litre engine makes good use of the hybrid energy from the battery. However, there are still times when you feel it's a little bit underpowered. Going up a hill, you really need to work the gearbox to make sure you're in the correct rev range to be able to make the ascent, and even on the slightly less inclined ones, you're still going to be thinking about a second gear ascent. Add to that, you've got a bit of a clunky gearbox in a way. The lever, it doesn't feel as planted into the position as some more premium and mainstream cars. However, I'm not complaining about that. I like that. I like to be able to feel what gear I'm in. I like to be able to throw the lever up into 5th and know that it's connected. Some people might like a smoother shift, but not me. In terms of engine power, this car does pull. Like I said, it makes good use of that hybrid energy. And for a 1 litre, it produces 110 brake horsepower. 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds. That's not to be sniffed at. You do feel like there's plenty of torque and power, something that the dashboard display will tell you about as well. It also gives you G-force readings, which I think is quite impressive, although, again, for a 1 litre, I wouldn't expect to be troubling them too much. So let's weigh up the pros and cons. The pros: fantastic equipment, stop-start, cruise control, adaptive cruise control, and a 1 litre engine that gives you 62 miles to the gallon. A decent looking car as well. And the cons? Well, the seats are uncomfortable. The suspension can be a bit bumpy at times. You get a bit of a flat spot if you rev through 2,500 RPM. And of course the infotainment system, the glass front that tracks dust, just doesn't feel as haptic as it could be. But those are probably more niggles than anything else, and things you could probably live with. I know I could. Overall, this is a very good car and a very good alternative to the Fiesta. If you're looking for a small hatchback, you won't go far wrong with the Suzuki Swift.